Everybody, so welcome to House Calls, the podcast. Today, it is just me and my co-host, Matt Waldron.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Dr. House. How are you?
Good. So we saw you, and you might not realize this is not a HIPAA violation because you signed that I was allowed to discuss your medical history with the entire nation.
I did.
But you came into the office today, and Dennis, the superstar scribe, saw that your name was Eugene. And he's looking at your picture and he thought that Matt had a twin brother.
I mean, you think the world is ready for two of these? I don't.
My question is, have you ever struggled by going by your middle name? Has it been like a struggle for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When people call Eugene Waldron at school or something, I'm like, I don't even turn my head. I'm the third. My grandfather didn't go by it. My father goes by Gene professionally. And so, yeah, it's just a waste of letters.
So I have two kids that go by their middle name, and they've both said it's been a hassle at points.
Yes.
But when my older son, Michael Ryan, was in first grade, when we showed up for like the parent-teacher conference, the teacher was like, hey, we already have a Ryan in the class. Can we call him Michael? And we're like, because there's another kid in the class, you want us to change our kid's name? Like, what are you talking about?
Because that's the only Ryan he'll ever encounter ever again. But didn't they want to call him MR House? MR House is like MR Ducks? No,
that would be great. But in medical records, it doesn't matter if you go by your first name or your middle name, as long as when they call your name, you go to the room. But what is a huge problem, and people probably don't realize this, are double names. So like if Emma went by Emma House Cook, when it gets into the medical records, sometimes they put it under House Cook as the last name.
Right.
And sometimes they put it under Cook. And it can be very confusing. The same thing happens if it's a hyphenated name, because you might get admitted to the emergency room with the hyphen, but when you go to x-ray, the x-ray tech doesn't put in the hyphen, or even like an apostrophe name. Like Dr. Donovan says that it's difficult because sometimes they forget the apostrophe. And what people don't realize is our medical records are not universe. So we have to, a lot of times we don't have access to your medical records, but a lot of times it's different sites. So if I'm seeing you, I might be looking up my office records, your hospital records, your x-ray records, and MRI from a third party. And they might all be under different names if you have a hyphen or you have a double name or you have an apostrophe. So I don't think people realize that, but like if you're choosing a name, make it simple.
Okay, and I can't believe the Kelsey brothers get more viewers than we do after that riveting data entry explanation. I think that was great, and that's one to grow on. Okay. Okay.
So today's episode is actually, I mean, you're the one who's getting the emails, but we have been inundated, and there's no way we can answer every email.
No,
but
and I apologize, we can't.
I do think we got an interesting one from Jeremiah from Colorado.
Yes.
And he wanted to know about weighted vests. Like, what's the deal with weighted vests? And what I thought was interesting is we both know Jeremiah. First of all, what's his nickname? Does he go by Jerry?
I thought, wasn't he a bullfrog?
I think he was a bullfrog.
He wasn't a friend of mine. Anyhow,
but he's an educated guy. He's the CEO of a company, and in my mind, I'm like, why don't you just YouTube this or put it into the Google machine? But then I'm like, what's happened? I think you and I have quickly become the most trusted people in healthcare, wellness, and fitness in the entire nation. So he can YouTube it. He can Google it, but he's not going to trust those people.
No. Jerry likes to really dig in and understand the nuts and bolts of things, whether it's, speed hump construction or weighted vest. He likes to know it all.
And a little bit of background is that whereas you are a rugged indoorsman, he is definitely a rugged outdoorsman. Whereas I'm kind of like JV outdoorsman. Like I like to be in the outdoors, but I like to be with the varsity. I like to have somebody who can look out for me. And the thing with the weighted vest is, in my mind, and this might be just me, but I feel like the three biggest fads in health and fitness right now are cold plunges. Everybody's talking about them. Weighted vests. All of a sudden, this last couple months, I've seen more and more people with them. And then the other one is saunas. Like those three are what's hot now.
Right. But there's nothing wrong with fads, right? Because everything that's new is considered a fad. And I think it's important that people understand the benefits, the pluses and the minuses of these fads before they go all in. And some of the starts of the fad, and it works for you, keep going.
Yeah. And kind of like cold plunging and saunas have been around forever. Weighted vests have been around forever. Uh, the military obviously hikes around with weighted vests. So here's the deal. So the military definitely does it. I think backpackers and hikers have been doing it forever. And you see people like if they are going to hike whatever, you would see them walking around with weights in their backpack when they're just doing local walks to get in shape for it. Um, the thing that my son-in-law, when he was playing high school football, they did their sprints in weighted vests in the Texas heat of August. So when he would get a workout in, he would get the weighted vest and do sprints as a med student. Like he
Right.
preferred to do it with a weighted vest. And then obviously my favorite character, Rocky Balboa,
Here we go.
in Rocky 6. And we will definitely put this video clip on the Instagram, is his final fight and his trainers like, you can't do hard running, you can't run fast anymore, so you're gonna do basically force and power. And he did his runs in a weighted vest. So that movie's like 10 years old. So my point being, the weighted vest has been around for a long time.
Correct. Correct. But I think that the ease of getting them now, and the popularity of, and I don't want to make this sound sexist, Jerry, no offense, but I see a lot of women wearing it and for bone density. And so why would somebody just start wearing a weighted vest? I'm asking.
So I think it's a couple things. And I think the people that I see wearing weighted vests are former runners. And this is where you were in this situation. That you used to do marathons.
Yep.
I never ran as far as you. I've done half marathons. But as you get older, sometimes those long distance runs, whether it's your 15-mile run, your 10-mile run, your 5-mile run, but those longer, slower paced runs, they can sometimes be a beating on the body.
Sure.
And so I'm seeing a lot of runners switch to walking and doing other stuff like functional strength training, that kind of stuff. And they see this weighted vest thing. They're like, oh, that's how to up the ante on my run. And that's who I'm seeing using the weighted vest, is a lot of people who are former runners who are trying to make their walk more challenging. But I'm also seeing it on people who are trying to get in shape. A lot of them are former athletes. They want more than the walk, but the run, the pounding of a run is a little bit too much for them.
Ty, what are the benefits of a weighted vest?
Well, I think one of the main benefits is in the same amount of distance and the same amount of time it takes to walk, you are adding difficulty. So I think there's a mental challenge to adding that difficulty. And people want to do hard things. So I think that's part of it. So it's just the challenge and the feeling of, hey, I walked 3 miles. We've talked about walking.
Yep.
Whether it's on a treadmill, it's like walking on the treadmill is good. Walking outside's better. Walking in nature's best. A lot of
Right.
people, they like that extra element when they're walking in nature, up and down hills, having that weight, and they feel good about themselves when they're done. So there is all the mental benefits of walking. And then when you add the weighted vest, you add the doing hard things. People like to feel their legs burning when they're going up hills, that kind of stuff. So I do think there's that benefit. I think there is a calorie benefit. So if you're trying to get in shape, if you're trying to either lose weight or maintain weight, and you are going to burn more calories with the weighted vest. So what that means is, let's say you're 20 pounds overweight and you're going out on a walk and you get into walking and you lose 10 pounds. Well, then to lose that next 10 pounds is more difficult because you're not as expending as much energy, because you're like, for me, say I'm 200 pounds and I lose 10 pounds, my next 3-mile walk, I'm only pulling around 190 pounds. I'm no longer pulling around 200 pounds. So I wear a 10-pound weighted vest, I'm getting the same benefit that I used to get as far as calorie burning.
It's
Yeah.
cardiovascular, and it's, building strength and doing hard things.
That's how I see it. I see that there is no real drawback to it. I think the other thing it does is it helps you with your posture. So you can't walk around with a weighted vest for say 3 miles with the wrong posture. So a lot of us lean forward too much, or just stand to one side or tilt awkwardly. And to walk with the weighted vest, you have to focus on really having upright, correct posture, like your posture right now.
Right.
So I do
Very
think
well.
that's
Thank you.
helpful. I do think that one of Jerry's questions was, what's the right weight to start off with? And honestly, the right weight is whatever's the best weight for you. But if you start off with too high of a weight, you're gonna quit. You're never gonna do it again. So the recommendations that I've come across um, is that for men they should start with 10 to 30 pounds, and for women they should start 5 to 20 pounds. Now, obviously, that's just a generic, like there's some women who should be doing 30 pounds, there's some men who should be doing 5 pounds. It's based on just the fact that men are generally bigger, and that's a rough estimate for people who want you not to quit, you know.
Okay.
Now you're
All right.
breaking up a little bit, but were you asking me about how this relates to human evolution?
Yes, that was definitely my next
Okay.
question.
So
Hey Ty,
are we
how do weighted vests how do they correlate to human evolution? And
so
wait, I don't
there
wait a
is
second. Wait a second. Time out. Wait.
yeah.
I don't want to go off on some tangent here and us get canceled about this. I don't need the evangelicals coming after us. I don't need flat earthers coming after us. So just be real careful when you answer this.
So let's say humans either evolved, or what makes us human. Let's say what makes us human so we don't get canceled. Would that be
Okay.
fair?
That's fair.
So
That's fair.
we know that compared to the rest of the animal kingdom, we're not as big and strong. We're not as fast. We don't have huge teeth. Like, how did we survive? So there's a couple reasons why we survive. The first thing is, for multiple reasons, which because you're a runner, we can run long distances. So that's what is persistence hunting. That's how the theory is that how we survived. And they can tell that through anthropology, but they can also tell that by looking at primitive tribes that are still in existence. We can't outrun a gazelle, but a group of us can keep running until that gazelle actually collapses from dehydration or whatever. So we have the ability, because of the way we breathe, the way we sweat, we can run forever. Correct?
If you say so, when you say a group of us, like why could a group of us run faster than a gazelle versus one person? I'm a little
we
curious
keep
about that one.
we keep running until they get exhausted. So if we spread out, the
Got it.
gazelle's darting back and forth,
Okay.
we can run for 20, 30 miles and keep going until that gazelle falls down. So that's step
Got it.
one. So we
Okay.
can keep up with the gazelle. Step two
A
is
gazelle.
our shoulders are unique in that they're perfect for throwing. So we can run to gazelle. As it gets close, we can throw a rock, a spear, or whatever. Then we have the opposable thumbs, which are great. They're very helpful. But we are also designed to carry things. Like, our body is perfect for carrying things. How would a gazelle carry something? How would even a lion carry things? They would have to eat it there. They can drag it somewhere, but they can't carry it. We can catch the gazelle, hit it in the head with a rock, use our opposable thumbs to pick it up, and carry it on our backs. So carrying is part of what's natural for us to be human. And there's all this research now. People want to get outside and do things that are more primitive. And I do think that carrying something, making our walk hard, being outside, going up and down hills, it keys into something.
I think you are nothing less than a scientist and possibly a pseudo anthropologist. But no, I can't wait to see kids in camp next summer with weighted vests and somebody yelling at them, "The gazelle's coming! Move, move, move!"
So, as you notice, there's not many kids doing it. This is
No.
definitely a middle-aged thing,
Yes.
or an old age thing. So I honestly think this is part of the greater wave of middle-aged people and old age people trying to stay fit and healthy.
Right. Right.
So
But it's a good way to do it. Right. So
yes,
what's you're saying? The 2 miles you walk are always better than the 3 miles you don't run.
yes. And you've lived this yourself. I mean, you were a marathon runner,
Yep.
and you were like, "Hey, maybe I'll try the bike thing." And clearly you fell 2 or 3 times instead of in front of some guests. And you were like, "This clipping in and out is too much," and you had to quit. So then we tried to take you mountain biking, and you ended up with shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
So you were somebody who had to find something else. And
So, yep. So
we
now
know
I do the mountain biking on my Peloton inside. I can clip in and out. I can leave the shoes on. I can just pull out.
you found yoga and staying active. You walk when you play golf, you walk a lot, you do yoga. Um, there are people who, if they couldn't run, they would have quit, and that would have been a time in the road that they said, "Oh, if I can't run, I'm not going to do
Do
anything."
anything.
And
Right.
that's why some middle-aged people fall apart. And it's very easy for the orthopedic surgeon to be like, "Well, what I want you to do is I want you to go swimming. Swimming's great for your joints." Well, you got to have access to a pool, and swimming's horrible if you're not a good swimmer,
Right.
right?
Which I'm
So,
not.
yeah, so you've been in this situation, so I think you understand what middle-aged people are looking for. And as you might say, well, why are Ty and Matt experts at this? As an orthopedic surgeon, I have this conversation with people every day. I'm basically, we're in an age where we have to talk to patients about their overall fitness. And part of that is we also have to talk about people with their overall weight. We're having more and more surgeries where people want to be active, they want joint replacements or things like that, and they can't have that surgery if they're morbidly obese. So that means that I'm getting these conversations with many people, and I'm also getting input. So I'm hearing the things that what people can't do, but what they can still do. And my advice to people as they age is you should really focus on zone two cardio, which means cardio where you can have a conversation. So it's
Right.
like walking, or even like you and I could probably do a jog and have a conversation, but we couldn't do
Yep.
a run and have
We
a
have. No.
conversation. Rucking is the perfect way to get your zone two cardio. And they actually recommend 100 hours to 200 hours a week of zone two cardio. So are you following me? So if you're going with the 100, that's 3 walks a week.
Right.
It could just be one huge hike on the weekend. I think it's real important to do strength training. And
Yep.
this is my thing. My caution I'm going to give you about the weighted vest. The weighted vest is that it is a nice supplement. It's a great addition to your zone two cardio to get a little strength during your zone two cardio. Don't let it substitute for your weight training. So everybody needs to do weight training as you get older. We all lose muscle mass. So if your muscle mass is here and it drops down to here, that's great. If your muscle mass is here and it drops off the screen, that's not good. So you want to keep your muscle mass as high as possible. And that also, if you're doing those strength training exercises, they are going to help your bone density. So bone density is important because you don't want to get the insufficiency fractures that people get when they get older. So that's not just like the broken wrist. That's like the broken hip or the broken spine, things that could put you down, keep you in bed, and you might not be able to get out of bed.
Right. And that's a quality of life as well. So that makes sense, right? So you add this to what you're already doing.
So you got the zone two cardio, you got the strength training, you then need flexibility, which yoga is how you do it. I think
Yes.
other people do general stretching. We've talked about that a lot. The other key ingredient is balance. So as you get older, balance is more and more important. And think about how many times you have almost sprained your ankle, but you
Yep.
didn't sprain your ankle. It's like, oh my gosh, I almost sprained my ankle. And if that was a total sprain and it was a broken ankle, that would be bad. So as you get older, you need to work on balance. And we can get into some of the groups and some of the ways to work on these things, but with balance, for some people, it's going to be doing something like a ruck outside. You're kind of stepping on the roots. You're avoiding the roots. You're avoiding different terrain of the.
So when you say ruck, you mean a weighted vest, but you're suggesting you hike through the woods, not walk through your neighborhood.
Yes. So I think walking through your neighborhood's great, but taking it to the next level, the physical benefits of doing it in terrain in the woods is awesome. But also, I think data shows the psychological benefits of being out in nature and trees and stuff. Now, everybody doesn't have that
Right.
capability, but I'd love for somebody to be like, "Hey, I'm gonna get the weighted vest and do it on my treadmill or my suburban neighborhood or my city neighborhood with the ultimate goal of next month I'm going to the state park
Right.
or I'm going on a hike, driving a little bit away and actually training for something." So it's like the goal is great, but building the habit to that goal is even more
Is
important.
everything. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the reason I want to talk about the different age groups is I feel like there's these flashpoints in age where you are confronted with, do I need to change up the way I'm working out? So first I'm going to break it down for you.
Okay,
We have
break it on down.
athletes and we have non-athletes.
Okay.
Okay. Non-athletes are simple. Is that if you are not an athlete in high school or college and you're getting to be middle age, you might need some guidance. You might need a trainer. You might need to research it. But if you're actually a senior citizen and you're like, you know what, I want to be active, you probably do need to get into a class. You probably need some supervision if you have no background, because your risk of injury is higher and you don't want to be using bad form or things like that.
Right.
So when we're talking about a class that teaches you flexibility, teaches you strength, teaches you agility, you probably need some supervision. The athletes are in a different category. So you have the person who's recently retired from playing competitive sports. So that might be the high school kid or the college kid. That group just needs to start working out. They need to focus on their strength. They need to focus on their cardio. They already have the background. So if you have just finished high school and you're heading off to college, or you just finished college playing competitive sports and you took the summer off, September 1st, you got to get going again, because you don't have the coach, you don't have the trainers, you don't have anybody making you do it. And some people are like, I'm never lifting weights again, or I'm never running again. You're going to regret it. You better just keep it rolling, because you don't have to do it quite as intense as you used to do when you're trying to win or trying to earn your position on the team. But you don't let it all go. You already have it, kind of thing.
Right. You've already built this base, and kind of what we were just saying, for the person who's right out of college or right out of high school, and they're not, don't have the daily grind, get a goal, make a
Yeah.
goal. It doesn't have to be run a marathon. It doesn't, just make a goal, something to shoot for, and that'll get you going, get you out of bed.
So I actually just had that perfect example as a family friend of ours was a high-level lacrosse player, and he tore his ACL his final year. So
Right.
like for the first time ever, he's not there with the trainers and the coaches and all these people supervising him. And I was asking him about that. I was like, is that tough? Has it been hard to stay motivated to do your therapy when, if you were a junior, you'd be all psyched up to get back for your senior year? Now you're like, what are you coming back for? And he has a ski trip at Christmas, and he's like, that's his goal. Like, that's the thing that keeps him
There you
motivated.
go. Right.
So the second group of athletes are kind of that weekend warrior group. I see this all the time in the office, where around late 30s, early 40s, they come in with these questions that for you would already intuitively know this, but this is the person who plays soccer, they play basketball, they play softball, but they don't do any fitness at all. So they're not like preparing at all to
Right.
do all these things. So they start falling apart, and like they'll come in for like a hamstring strain, like it's the bizarrest thing ever, because it's new to them. Whereas you would be like, of course you got a hamstring
Right.
sprain. You can't go full speed from second to home
Right.
without stretching, kind of thing, because you've been through that age. And I always use the reference. I'm like, if Tom Brady just threw footballs, his arm would fall off. Like there
Right.
gets to be an age where you have to start strength training. You have to start doing your cardio. You have to start stretching. And that's the kind of the weekend warrior middle-aged person.
Right. Don't you think a lot of that has to do with they don't know the fundamentals of base running that you and I just witnessed?
Yes,
That's
we did
probably hurt him
witness
as
that.
well. But
So since that's an inside joke, we announced a kickball game of athletic people, and their base running skills were atrocious.
it was embarrassing.
And
Anyhow,
why is that? Is it because they all grew up playing lacrosse, or is it because they never watched the Orioles growing up? Like
I
Lenny
think they never watched the
Cicada would
Orioles.
never make those mistakes.
Please, there's no way. No way Mark Belanger would have done something like that.
Is it true that you went on a double date with Kiko Garcia?
No, that was Ralph Salvon and Eddie Murray. It was a triple date.
Okay. So our final group that I want to discuss is basically our age. Okay.
18 plus?
Yeah. So we had our workout plan for years, but we have had to adjust as we've gotten older. And it's not that we can't go out and do something. It's just that, is it worth it? If you go out and play soccer, you're not going to really walk correctly for 3 days. Correct.
Right. Agreed.
But
Yep.
you might make it through the game.
Yeah, yeah.
But you might. So,
I'll feel it tomorrow. Yes.
so one of the things that people have asked me is, what's this whole like trying to live forever thing? And it's not that. It's not about being healthy forever. It's about your health span instead of your lifespan. There's no guarantees in life. Like just because you're doing yoga and you're trying to eat healthy and the only thing you ever do bad is Twizzlers does not mean you're going to make it to 110 years old. But
No,
what
I
you
don't want
want to
to.
do, and this is a great book by Dr. Peter Attia, who actually he wrote a book called Outlive, and he brings up the concept of health span versus lifespan. And it's not about living forever because there's no guarantees, and
Right.
you could be a black swan. So a black swan means an unfortunate, unforeseen event that would happen to you that would not be high probability, and you don't make it very long. And that can be a whole nother podcast because that's a big topic. But the point is, you want to be healthy as long as you possibly can. So people our
Exactly.
age need to be preparing for our last decade. And if our last decade's this decade or next decade, or we make it till we're 90 or 100, you need to be preparing for that decade. So if you're going to be a grandparent and kids are having kids later, so we're probably going to be grandparents a little older than our parents were, correct?
Yes. Hopefully. Yes.
So if you want to be 80 and carry your kids up the steps at 50, you can't just be walking up the steps. You need to be carrying weight up the steps. So that's where like a weighted vest would come in. If you want to be able to go on a hike with your 6-year-old granddaughter uh, and go up that big hill that she's going to be able to get up at 80, at 50, you might want to be doing it with a 25-pound vest on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Get in that habit. It's all about building that base to build upon. So yeah, that does make sense.
And I would highly recommend Outlive. I read it probably a year or two ago, and the thing that was my takeaway was in your 50s. And he had like a centurion decathlon. He had a whole list of things that you should be able to do at 50. And I forget all of them, but the overall concept that I remember was that you need to be working out at 50 harder, have your goal for what you're going to be like when you're 80, step it up when you're 50, because you are going to get less flexible, you are going to get weaker, but you want to start from here as you and make it a slow drop. The other thing about that book was the last chapter, he trained in Baltimore. He trained as a surgeon. I don't think he finished residency, but he trained as a surgeon, and he dropped off to get into this health and wellness and everything. But his whole last chapter is basically talking about his mental health and how he was just an angry guy and kind of didn't know where it came from. And he is very open to all the work he has done to not be an angry guy. And I think that's pretty unusual for somebody who's writing that type of book to open
Yeah.
up like that. So
Yeah. To be
um,
vulnerable like that. Absolutely.
you're not an angry guy, so I don't know if you need it, but maybe some of the people we know need it. So the last thing I want to say is relevant um to what I do at work as an orthopedic surgeon, and is the big elephant in the room, is weight. So as a society, we're getting bigger and bigger. And that does affect orthopedic surgery. Now, there's little nuisances where the surgery is slightly harder. I'm not talking about those. And people are going to say, well, what do these two guys who are pretty fit know about weight? Well, I do have these conversations daily,
Right.
like I said. But the thing that we don't always realize is there's the person our age who has been big their whole life, and they come in and they have knee pain and they have a little bit of arthritis, kind of probably the amount that you and I have, and we don't even know it. But it's the extra 50 to 100 pounds that makes that little bit of arthritis extremely painful.
Sure.
And when you try to discuss with them to say like, hey, your weight's a big part of this, it's hard to always understand because you're like, I've been this weight for 30 years. I just hurt my knee stepping, when I missed a step. And you're like, yeah, I get it. Your knee's aggravated, but it's not going to get better because of that weight. And it's a conversation where you're really balancing honesty and cruelty. You got to say it as
Right.
nice as possible. You don't want to blame them. And I believe that people our age, it's not our fault. We were told the wrong way to exercise, the wrong way to eat. But
Right.
eventually you have to do the research yourself and try to figure it out. And I just encourage them to be like, there's so much out there now about nutrition, about medicines. Talk to a nutritionist, talk to your doctor. There's things coming out, and there's things that are going to be even better. And we'll do another episode on that to judge what's the way to do it for people. But it is something to at least keep your eye open and watch out for it. But the other group is if you break your ankle or break your leg or do something like that and you are not and you're too heavy where you can't use crutches or you can't use a walker, you can't use your arms to pull you out of bed, that turns what would be a inconvenient injury for a healthy person into a major life-changing event with huge comorbidities. Because if you lie in bed, that's when you get all the problems like
Right.
blood clots, heart attacks, bed sores, you name it. The longer you're in bed, the weaker and weaker you get. So although you might be moving around the world okay, 50 pounds overweight at 50, at 75, if you don't have strength and you lose balance and you break an ankle and you are stuck in bed, that can be a devastating injury. So that is why, as orthopedic surgeons, we are concerned about weight. And that's why we encourage people, even though you might think it's out of our specialty, we see what the end result of this is. And that's
Sure.
why we encourage people at 40 and 50 to get started on managing their weight, get started on their strength, their agility, their balance. And as you know, I wrestled, so talking about weight was no big deal. You had to talk about weight every day.
Right. You get to see the before and the after of weight and how that affects people mentally and physically. So I think coming from a trusted source like a orthopedic surgeon makes sense.
So that's why I love the weighted vest. I'm a huge proponent of it.
All right.
Can you think of any drawbacks before we
Well,
sign off?
if you had poor posture to begin with and you didn't know you had poor posture, right? And you didn't and you can hurt yourself, but as long as you're active and moving, I don't see anything bad about it. And who cares if it's a fad? Whatever. If it works for you, it works.
Don't choose such a high weight to start off
Yeah.
that you
Yeah, baby
quit it
steps.
and don't. I mean, nobody's taking notes and being like, "Oh, I did 50 pounds. You only did 30 pounds."
Yeah. Ty, I think once again, I think we've helped people, we've changed the world. And how about us?
How about us? But do you think Jerry will be satisfied with this?
I think so. But if he makes it this far, I'll be surprised, to be quite honest. Maybe somebody in Jerry's family gives him Cliff Notes.
So I saw him wearing a weighted vest and I thought it was a life jacket. I'm like, why are you in the woods with a life jacket? And
But
how about us?
good night, everybody.